There's something I've noticed in recent times. Before 2023 elections, there were voices, people, 2023, before 2023 elections, after 2023 elections, there were these critical voices that, a lot, many people, including myself, we used to listen to that they talk a lot about what is going on. They release expose, undercover investigations, critical investigations to expose the ills of the society, to expose the presidential candidates, those who have charges and all of that, you know, expose critical security information and stuff like that. We have David Udein, we have Pidom, Isaac Bristol, you have Fisayo Soyombo, and then we have someone like Rufai Hussaini, anchor analyst on Arise and News and Television. We have all of these people. Now, while these persons are they are still active, there are questions as to what has happened. You know, David Udein was the one that gave a lot of expose about President Tinubu's background while he was in the US, as it relates to charges relating to drugs and stuff like that. You know, and he made an expose on it. Then we have Pidom, Isaac Bristol, who also made a lot of revealing expose on the government and all that. David Udeni, on his own part, we know that he's in exile. He's scared. I think he's sought asylum in another country because of exposing things about the government and fear for his life. You know, and then David Udeni, I don't know if it's the frustration of how 2023 went down. It's not as the David Udeni we used to know. Those exposes and things he was talking about then has kind of dried up. You know, maybe he's frustrated with how 2023 went and how he was personally invested and how that didn't pan out. So that's David Udein. Then Pidom was Isaac Bristol was arrested. Pidom used to be this kind of mythical figure, somebody who was using an anonymous handle, and people didn't really know who he was. And then his identity was uncovered. He was arrested, and all of that. So, and since he's been released, he's not really been active in the investigative space as he once was. You know, then we have Fisai Osoyombo. He still does his investigative work, Foundation for Investigative Journalism. But in a way, Fisayo really got into controversy, by trying to revive a case that many thought had been handled in the UK. You know, and then, when people were trying to counter the information that was posted by journalists in the Foundation for Investigative Journalism, Fisayo chose not to reason with people. You know, so Fisayo was someone that was seen as a firebrand, independent journalist, who do well to, make sure he uncovers things that are happening and all of that. But that episode kind of dented his image, and so we have that. Then we have Rufai Hussaini. Rufai Hussaini is still active on Arise, but then Rufai Hussaini is also involved in a number of controversies and stuff like that. So unlike in 2023, we have all these voices, we are very vocal and saying a lot of things. But now we don't really have those voices much like that. The kind of activism, the kind of, even online advocacy activism that was there prior to 2023 is not really that there again. You know, the obedience, some of the key obedient guys, and Morris Monye, you know, first ladyship. You know, we still have those key obedient voices. They're not as vocal as, some have stepped aside, like Maurice Moye and Kenneth Okonkwo and others have left. Some left, and we're quite critical um, of the role that Obi has been playing, with Labour Party and stuff like that. You know, so we see this 2027 is quite different from 2023. It appears that there's just been a systematic uncoupling of those critical voices that we're hearing in 2023, and now we just have this kind of, silent frustration, this kind of feeling of acceptance of what is inevitable. That 2027 is going to be a coronation of the current ruling party, and that there's not really much that one could do about it. It's quite sad to see those voices of opposition, of criticism. It makes the polity vibrant, add a lot of color and substance and vigor and energy. But now we're not really seeing much of that, you know. So except some activist movement here and there for various activist causes, people who are looking for people whose money have not been paid and stuff like that. So it's really quite unfortunate to see this kind of scenario where the opposition is kind of not as strong as 2023 is, and the voices that were once on top then are now quiet, and it's this all of these dynamics will play out in the 2023 in 2027 elections will play out, but we'll see how things go.